Mr. Robs here, and today we're going to talk about sample space in this particular video. Okay, and so what a sample space is, take a moment, read this definition. It's a list of all possible outcomes of an experiment. You can represent sample space in various ways. And a lot of times you have to think about very carefully what are the possible outcomes of an experiment. Each event has several outcomes, but an experiment is several events in a row and all the final outcomes. So if we consider that, if I had tossed two coins at the same time, so my first coin I can get a head, and my second coin I could also get a head. Or if I had the head, I could get a tail. Or if my first coin, this is my first coin, I got a tail, I could get a head on the second coin, and I could get a tail and a tail. So these are all, this here is called the sample space. Sample. Okay, or I could use a two-dimensional grid. And so what that looks like is if I have a grid, and I know if this is my first coin and my second coin, my first coin could be head and tail, okay? And my second coin, I'll try and switch over to red, could be a head and a tail. And so I know I could be head and a head, and that would also be like a head and a tail, as shown here. So here's half my sample space. Or I know I could get a tail and a tail, and then this could be a head and a head. And so listing these out in different ways is just a way to help organize your thoughts, because these sample spaces could have many different outcomes, and so you have to make sure you don't miss any. And finally, I could do a tree diagram. And if I do the tree diagram, here's the first event. Here's the first event. And the possibility of the first event, I flip the coin, is a head or a tail. And then I do the second event. And when I do the second event, if I had a head the first time, then I could get a head or a tail. If I got a tail the first time, well, then I could also get a head or a tail. And so when I put it all together, I get a head and a head and, I'm not going to get into that notation yet, a head and a tail, and a tail and a head, and a tail and a tail. And so here are three different ways that you can write out the sample space in some kind of organized fashion. Now example 2 here. Suppose you roll 2 dice. All right, so I want to list the possible outcomes and fill in the charts below. So if I am doing the outcomes here, I get 1, 1 and 2, 1. Well, I could get a 3, 1 and a 4, 1 and a 5, 1 and a 6, 1. And so on and so forth. And so this could be a 2, 2 and a 3, 2 and a 4, 2, 4, 2, 5, 2, 6, 2. At this point, you should pause the video and fill in the blanks yourself. See if you can fill it in. I'm going to pause it as well. Okay, so you're back. So they're all filled in. Note, if we look here, this first column here, the 6s, refer to the first die of a 6. And if I look at, let's say, this column, that's all these second values are all 5. And so I can have a summary of all the outcomes. Now these are the outcomes. It's possible that I want the total score, so I have to add all these together. And so if I add the 1 and the 3, that will be 4. The 1 and the 4 will be 5. The 1 and the 6 will be, or 1 and the 5 will be 6. And the 1 and the 6 will be 7. Take a moment and fill in the rest of this chart as well. I'm going to pause the video and it'll come back filled in. So you should pause it and fill it in. And now you should see that all filled in, and we have the different outcomes. There's only one way to get 12, 2 ways to get 11, 3 ways to get a 10, and so on. And you can see now I have all the possible, this is the entire sample space for the total scores. And finally, suppose that we pick and replace, that's a key word, 2 marbles from a bag which has 3 red, 5 black, and 2 yellow. I want to do the sample space as a tree diagram. Well, on my first event, I'm going to pick 2 marbles. So my first event is going to be, I have 3 possible outcomes. And I know that it could be a red marble, a black marble, or a yellow marble. If that was the case, once I pick a red, well, I put it back in and I could then have 3 possible outcomes here, or 3 outcomes here, or 3 outcomes here. Where each of these, well, this could be a red, or this one could be a red, or this one could be a red. I could have, these ones could be black, and finally these ones could be yellow. And so my final outcome, I would have a red red, or a red black, or a red yellow, or a black and a red, and a black and a black, and a black and a yellow, or a yellow and a red, a yellow and a black, and a yellow and a yellow. And this here is a sample space. The organization of the tree diagram is really quite key to making sure you don't miss any of the possible outcomes. This is here the entire sample space, which is a list of all the possible outcomes of an experiment.